Hi everyone. I want to say thank you to all the subscribers who have hit the subscribe button when you've been watching one of my videos. I've reached the 1,000 mark, which is a really big deal in Bookstagram world. So many choices that when someone decides watching a video to hit the subscribe button, it is just a real honor that people have decided that they might want to watch another one. So I really appreciate it. It's been so much fun doing this for the year. I decided I wouldn't do a Q&A because I've just done one for my 1-year anniversary, but I was interested in doing the what's in my bag tag. It's so much fun and it tells you a little bit about the person and it's just a delight. So I will send you over to that tag after this reading update. And if I didn't say it in that tag, I'll tag some people in the notes to do the what's in my bag tag. So thank you once again. And I'm really looking forward to the next year ahead with all of you, because the joy in having subscribers at all is that the conversations just keep getting get richer. So thank you so much. Hi everyone. I am trying to get myself into some light in this room. It's finally sunshining, but I am here with the Tookster. She's right where my camera tripod is. We'll see if she shows up and starts to go crazy. First of all, I hope you're all doing well. I'm filming this in early November and at the end of a very hectic week. I've said this for a couple weeks now, and it will be different. It will slow down. There will be an end to the frantic part. So I'm trying to get my thoughts together to talk about some books that I have finished that I really want to share with you. But I do have a couple notes. Let me find my notes. Oh, here they are. I do have a couple notes that I jotted down, especially after finishing Eileen. So the first book I'll talk about is Eileen. I read this a couple weeks after I read Death in Her Hands, and I'm really glad I did. This is why I picked up Eileen so soon, because this is her first book, published in 2015. Death in Her Hands, wasn't that 5 years later? Something like 2020. I thought I could gather some interesting, I don't know what, from reading both of her two books at once, especially her first book. But what I have found is what you Moshfegh fans already know, and that is that there is no pattern to Moshfegh's writing. She writes what she wants to write. It does have a bit of a theme, but it will vary greatly. So I don't, and I'm not enough of a literary critic to be able to say if and how she's developed as a writer since Eileen compared to Death in Her Hands. But this is interesting though. I saw the interview, which I think any interested person should watch, with Jaylen from Bar in the Bookcase and Ottessa, Moshfegh. It's so good. I watched it recently for a second time. I'm sure I watched it when it came out, but now it's more relevant because I've read 2 of her books. And in there, she says she's attracted to the disgusting, the dark, and the wretched. And I watched this interview specifically after I finished Eileen, and man, that really explained things. Because Eileen is a story about a young woman. She's something like 19 to 21, let's say, because she's going into a bar. And so she's a young woman. She was going to college. She lives in a New England town, small New England town. She gets pulled out of college, or she at least has to come home from college because her mother dies. I don't think she ever goes back to college unless I missed that part in the beginning of the book. But in any case, she's a young woman, she's living at home, and she's living at home largely because her father is dysfunctional. That's my guess about why she's never left. She feels like she's an adult on the outside, but she's a child on the inside. She's very much shut down and disassociative, knowingly. She talks about herself that way in this book. This book takes place in the 60s. I looked like a girl you'd expect to see on a city bus, reading some cloth-bound book from the library about plants or geography, perhaps wearing a net over my light brown hair. You might take me for a nursing student or a typist. Note the nervous hands, a foot tapping, bitten lip. I looked like nothing special. It's easy for me to imagine this girl, a strange, young, and mousy version of me, carrying an anonymous leather purse or eating from a small package of peanuts. I was thin, my figure was jagged, my movements pointy and hesitant, my posture stiff. The terrain of my face was heavy and soft, rumbling acne scars blurring whatever delight or madness lay beneath the cold and deadly New England exterior. This is how the book opens. And that's a pretty tame opening for the book because Eileen lets you in to how she's choosing to live in her house, which is pretty extreme and unusual, and how she's accepting just living there in this house that has died along with her mother. The way that she's chosen not to care for the house, not to clean, not to cook really, maybe some eggs every once in a while. Her dad has gone to living in the kitchen by dragging a recliner in there that no longer reclines, and just getting a bottle of gin every day or vodka. I don't remember. He doesn't drive, so Eileen has to run to the liquor store for him. He is very, she's living with an accepted amount of dysfunction with her father in that he's always hurling insults at her and disparaging comments, but she's accepted that. She works at a boys' juvenile detention center, which in those days was really a jail and was like any horrific place like that in the 60s that you could ever imagine. And between the boys and the prison guards and the abuse that the boys suffered, and some of them young, desolate in an interesting way because Eileen is choosing that. I mean, we know she's been to college. I don't recall whether the book says how far along in college she was. It's interesting because Eileen is telling the story from 50 years hence. She says in the beginning, like, this is not a story about my dad and how he's treating me and the state of the house or anything like that. Like, it's not about my conditions at all. She reveals some things, and I think that Moshfegh's brilliance here is that you might subtly understand that Eileen has a certain way of thinking about herself. Through Eileen's comments, her comments in the book to you, the reader, about different employees at the prison and how she feels about certain people. For instance, saying that a person that has a certain body size is dumb. That means they're lazy and dumb, something like that. You see those statements coming from Eileen, and in one point, part of the book, I had empathy for Eileen, and then there's other parts where the way her mind thinks is despicable, and I think Moshfegh, that's intentional. Like, we are supposed to have conflicting feelings about her, but in the end, I was always rooting for her. She meets a new employee that's supposed to be some kind of education director. Her name's Rebecca at work. And because of all these seeds that have been planted we understand that Eileen is very immature in the way that she thinks about things. Moshfegh has given us enough details about that. But we also know that underpinning that and her decision about how to live is an intelligence. She meets Rebecca, and because she is so vulnerable, this is a place that I marked in the book. Like the minute she meets Rebecca, she starts obsessing with every word that comes out of Rebecca's mouth. She talks about replaying a scene with Rebecca over and over and over again and needing to practice what it is she's going to wear now that Rebecca works there, what she's going to say. And she says, in the story, it's not because I was like sexually attracted to Rebecca, but I had a crush of sorts on Rebecca. Meeting Rebecca was like learning to dance, discovering jazz. It was like falling in love for the first time. I had always been waiting for my future to erupt around me in an avalanche of glory. And now I felt it was really happening. Rebecca was all it took. And then she uses a Latin phrase, per aspera ad astra. And I looked it up and it means something like out of struggle comes glory. I'm forgetting now. It's something like that. I'm sure I'll put it down below here what I'm trying to say. This whole other act of the book is about Rebecca and places in this timeline of Rebecca working there that you as the reader, you're like, what's going on with that Rebecca? Now, the way that Eileen has become obsessed with Rebecca is noticed by Rebecca. So we don't know what that means. We don't know what kind of person Rebecca is. We're not hearing anything about Rebecca except through Eileen's eyes. But we know this is a story that Eileen is talking about 50 years later, and she does sprinkle in through the book that she leaves later. So I won't spoil the plot and then the ending of this book for you, because this book is all about the subtle moving forward of time. The chapters are done as days, like Friday, Saturday, and then Christmas Eve, and then the end. As I am starting to understand with Moshfegh's books, there could be what you might call a twist at the end, and that's all I'm going to say. I think it's an ambiguous ending. I was left with questions. So if you read this book, don't spoil it for anybody in the comments, but let me know if you were left with questions at the end. It, in parts, as many people say about this book, made me a little woozy or queasy, because Eileen, in the person that she is, talks a lot about her bowel movements, but not just about that, just about all kinds of gross things. So this is the atmosphere that you're stepping into when you open a Moshfegh book. And I suppose that this is true for Latvona. So know you're signing up for that. I knew that going in, and this book, like, because of the tension that was building as you got further into the story, especially near the end, it was like a real, like, oh my God, page turn, page turn, page turn. Like, what's happening? This was a real experience. I don't want to call it enjoyable, but the writing is just, yeah, I mean, definitely this is literary fiction. And just know that Ottessa is attracted to the disgusting, the dark, and the wretched. Let me see if I can change the camera angle. Okay, that might be a little better now. This has to do with a quirky family in town where one of the daughters, really the main character of this book, Maricat, was accused of murder because during a family gathering, she had served food and it was thought that she had poisoned family members. I'm forgetting the details now about who they were and what the family, whether it was Easter or something like that. She was acquitted for the murder, but the town did not acquit her. So they live in this old house, and they are just holed up by themselves. And Maricat is the brave one that goes into town and gets gets groceries and stops at the library and tries sometimes to stop at the diner, but people yell things at her, names and everything. She is such a darling character, though. They have such a tight relationship. My name is Mary Catherine Blackwood. I am 18 and I live with my sister Constance. And then they have an uncle Julian. I adored Maricat. That's her nickname. Her name's Mary. I adored their relationship. Appear to be 18 years old. It feels like she has a repressed childhood. I mean, or she's repressed adulthood, because she is like such an innocent person. So quirky. It has such a sense of place in this house and in this town. This might have been the last book that Shirley Jackson wrote. I might be remembering that right. So that's that. Then I am reading Daddy's Gone A-Hunting. I've been calling it Huntin', but it's Hunting. And I have this beautiful Persephone edition that I talked about in another video that I found at a thrift store, at a Goodwill store. Never been cracked open. And look at these end papers. I've never had a Persephone book, so I didn't know they made end papers in their books. So this is my second Penelope Mortimer. I read just recently The Pumpkin Eater. Pumpkin Eater is also named after a, what do they call it, a nursery rhyme or something? Well, this one is too. This one is too. Daddy's Gone A-Hunting is like a nursery rhyme that's part of a song that's going on in one of those cranked up music boxes that Ruth, the main character, buys for a baby present. So this is written in 1958 or so. It feels like it was written in the 70s. Like, it does feel more modern than that. It's Penelope Mortimer's very wry voice. She's talking from, this is a third person narrative, and it's about Ruth and her husband Rex, and they have 4 or 5 children, and most of her children are now in boarding school except Angela, who's graduated and not going to college yet, or maybe she's old enough to now be at home. But this is largely a story about Ruth going out of her mind because she's not raising children anymore. And Rex, she and Rex don't really have a loving relationship because he just wants his life to keep on going the way it's always been, regardless of the kids now being at boarding school for 9 months out of the year practically. And Ruth having all the time in the world and not having anything to do. She doesn't want to be with the society women. Oh, I should say, this is a family that has wealth. They are not by any means royalty or extremely wealthy, but they are middle class, upper middle class, I would say. And she could have upper middle class friends and do all the social things. She just doesn't want to. She feels like she's one of those women that are starting to ask themselves, is this all there is? How much shopping can I do for towels? How much, embroidery can I do? I have a brain, and I am now not consumed with children and running schedules, and I'm going out of my mind. So things unravel from there. I am halfway through, and like The Pumpkin Eater, just similar themes about the partnership between her and her husband, and that tension and changing roles, and being stuck in this part of our history where she doesn't have very many choices. I really like the sharpness of Penelope Mortimer's writing. She's really asking the big questions. And when you put this book in the time it was written, it's a very unusual book, just like The Pumpkin Eater, to have come out. And that's what makes it really interesting to me. So I'll definitely be looking for more Penelope Mortimer. Oh, and then I finally got to a short story. I wanted to try some James Joyce, and I knew I wasn't going to go after the heavy hitters, the James Joyce heavy hitters. But I did have this book, Dubliners. Nora from Pear Jelly, which is a beautiful Bookstagram account, talked about this book. I didn't know it was short stories. So when I heard it was, and then I heard her talking about one particular story, which she was using as an example of a spinster tale, I just thought I'm going to at least read that story. And it's the last one in the book, and it's called The Dead. And it's just this very atmospheric tale about two sisters who host a holiday party right before Christmas every year. And they invite the neighbors or people from the area that they live in, and whether it's a village or something like that. And it has some of the best written scenes that I've ever read. If you can think of a movie where there's a house full of people and then a dining room full of people at a holiday or a feast, and the camera's just panning and going into conversations and out and in and out. That's how the story reads, and I adored it. That's all I can say. I don't really remember the details or anything, but if this is a sense of James Joyce's writing, then I'm very interested in reading more of these stories. So I'm very happy that Nora mentioned this. She was on a podcast, which is the Mooks and the Gripes podcast, the Spinster September podcast. So I recommend that podcast in general, but certainly Nora's Bookstagram account. I didn't look up Isla's name, so again, I may be mispronouncing Isla McElroy. But I also saw an interview between Jaylen from Bar in the Bookcase and Isla about this new book. So Isla also wrote The Atmospherans, which is such a cool title. I really want to check out what that book's about. But People Collide is really interesting. So the book opens up to Isla is, an American author, a non-binary American author. Their first book was The Atmospherans, but they do a lot of writing elsewhere. These two Americans who have married each other. It seems like they married each other to take this trip that they've taken, but they're living abroad for a year in Bulgaria. And the book opens up and they're in Bulgaria, and the main character, Eli, has married Elizabeth. Elizabeth is a teacher of some sort, but Eli doesn't have a lot to do when they're abroad, and he's now feeling that. Like, he didn't realize he was going to be so bored. And that's literally all I've read. However, the premise of the book, and it is that, and certainly Elizabeth is more organized and successful. He leaves his apartment, and one day he discovers that he now inhabits her body. That's all I know. I can just say, in the few pages that I've read, I love the writing. I love the writing style, and I'm willing to keep going. So I'll let you know how it turns out. I would love to hear from anybody that's read The Atmospherans. That's all I have. I'm going to the library tomorrow. I've got some holds. Of course I have holds. I can't really remember what they are right now, but they're coming, and I'll share them with you. So thanks for tuning in to my reading update. I have some thoughts. About my October reading that I might actually share, because it was a pretty interesting and just more interesting than normal month of reading. So I may share some thoughts about that. But I will send you now to the clip, which is the What's in My Bag tag. So thanks for joining me. Hello. What's in my bag? Well, first, because I have two bags here, I wanted to show you one of my favorite tote bags that is large enough that I use it for groceries. I wish I used it for the library, but it really needs to be saved for groceries because it's so big And it's a Mr. Rogers bag. And it has a zip. It's got a flap with a zip. And look how wide it is. It fits everything. It fits like a huge Trader Joe's haul. We got this, or I got this. Oh, and the straps, so important. The straps, you could be carrying the heaviest Trader Joe's haul and it's going to be resting on your shoulders. But this was like a supporting your local PBS station gift. And they were doing a special Mr. Rogers weekend years and years ago. I've had this forever. All right, this is a bag. Oh my gosh, this is one of those TJ Maxx things that through the pandemic, I carried just a fanny pack thing. I think it was REI brand. Patagonia makes a similar one, but it was an REI brand and I loved it. But then after 3 years, I was just tired of it, 2.5 years, and I wanted to go back to an actual shoulder bag. I always wear a crossbody bag. I want it to look a certain way, but I don't want to spend very much money for it. And this was like, I walked into TJ Maxx just to like look, and this was clearance. And I don't know, it might be vegan leather brand. Does that say Nanette Lepore? And it's fine. And it's got to be something I can just stick my hand into. It can't be flap. It can't be, this has a zipper, but I don't use it. I like a couple inside pockets, and this has an outside pocket, which is really cool. The only thing I have in the outside pocket is these prescription cat food things. So that's what I keep there. I always know they're there. And in my bag, I have this wallet that I've had forever. I got it, I think I got it online. Like, it was an Amazon thing, but I like a snap thing. Then I have two lip things. One is just the simple Carmex. You can do this while you're sitting at a stoplight in the car. And the other is kind of the same thing, except it's like one of those lip things you're supposed to put on overnight that is supposed to shed your chapped lips, which mine are perpetually. I got this as a sample from Sephora. You know how you get points? It's called Laneige Lip Sleeping Mask. But it's so glossy that I don't use it. I find that I never remembered to use it, so I just threw it in my bag, and I like having it in my bag. Kind of just like an everyday lip gloss. I have a random pen. I will talk a little bit about pens in a second. Always a hair tie, never enough of them. And I have a wrapper from one of my favorite snacks. They make these now in minis. The RX Bar Mini. Egg whites, peanuts, one date, no BS. I love this brand. It's like the perfect in between lunch and dinner, in between breakfast and lunch. I'm somebody that gets hungry like that, and I need something, and I throw one of these in my bag when I know it's going to be that time of day. Always a good idea to carry around Pepto-Bismol tablets. You just never know. A random sticker. I love to pick up stickers, especially if they're free. And this is from K-Brew, which is the best bagel place in Knoxville, Tennessee. Coffee, amazing. They make their own bagels. I think they're sourdough. I don't eat much gluten just because I just feel like I feel better when I don't, but I do when I'm K-Brew. All right, in this inside pocket, I have pens. Pens are very important to me. I pick up random pens. Where's this one from? God, I don't even know what this is. Pens are really important to me. I'm a pen freak, but I don't mean expensive pens. I just mean like when I find the right pen, I try to, especially if they're free, I try to pick up a couple. This is from Kripalu, one of my favorite places in the whole wide world, and I love their pens, and they have a whole bunch sitting out at the registration desk. This is in West Stockbridge, Massachusetts, and it's a yoga retreat center. We have a couple friends that live in upstate New York, and they call Kripalu Cripple You because it's a yoga place. And you can go for long weekend programs with a specific person that they're bringing in, or you can buy a day pass and eat their amazing organic and or vegan or vegetarian food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then have yoga classes in between. And it's magical. And you can also have a massage there. They have a healing arts program. Super special place. I can't recommend this enough. And then this is a free pen from the salon that I go to. They're fairly new, or they just opened last year, and these pens were there. Yeah, pens, super important. Pencils too. God, I love pencils. All right, keys. That's really it for the contents of my purse. Oh no, wait! I want to talk about the lip stuff. Key fobs. I have one for a farm that has a store just down the street. I like to get eggs there that they get from a local organic egg place. I have the grocery store. I have the Y. And most importantly, I have my library card. They let you pick what design that you want on the fob card thing. I love that. And then, what do I have for my lips besides the lip balm? I have two things. One, this is ancient, but I love Bobbi Brown as a brand. Excuse me. This is called the Art Stick Crayon Rouge, or crayon stick. And it's just chunky. And it's like a very neutral color. I don't know, will it tell me what the color is? It says Bear. I've had this for a long time. They last forever. You have to have a jumbo sharpener. And what I love about this is that you can just put it on without looking. And you don't, I don't put it on really darkly, but I just dab it. So I don't even know if they make this anymore. I've had it for so long. Then just recently, I discovered I love to try out store brands. And so I've tried out some Sephora brand things. This is Sephora's. I went in the store for something. I wanted a sheer lip color that I could put on without looking, because I just don't wear lipstick anymore. Although I did for a long time when we were all wearing lipstick. And this is very sheer. You can't see how sheer it is, but it's taupey. And it's just glossy, much cheaper than the Glossier thing that I was originally looking at. And these go on sale because Sephora has sales on their own brand. So I like to find things I enjoy from store brands, because then they'll go on sale, sometimes more than the other brands. That's it. Thanks for hanging in there with me in the What's in My Bag tag. Please consider yourself tagged if you have a BookTube channel. I love seeing the What's in Your Bag videos. It's so much fun. Please do one. And I hope to see you on the next one.